Okay, I think we're going to have a bit of a laugh about that. We had to reboot the computer. So that was what went wrong, and rebooting the computer has solved the echo.
Should we try turning the council off and on again as well?
So, for those at home, let's give it a second shot. Watch the electric video.
Whangari Onslow Western Ward, Wellington City Council. Well, the Whangari Onslow Western Ward is situated as the western part of Wellington City Council. It contains the rural suburbs or rural areas of Macro and Macro Beach. It contains one of New Zealand's biggest suburbs, Karori. It also contains Northland, Wilton, Crofton Downs, Wadestown, Mayo, Kandala, Whawhara, Broadmeadows, and Nowronga. And you're probably wondering what unique features Whangari Onslow Western has. Well, it has two postcodes, 6012, which also is shared partly with Wellington Ward, and also 6035. It also has 4 libraries, 6 train stations, 2 tunnels, and 2 swimming pools. Now, let's get to the most important part, the voting system. In Whangari Onslow Western, you'll be electing 3 councillors to the table. You'll be voting for them using the voting system, Single Transferable Vote, better known as STV. How to vote is by numbering your candidates 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, in the order of preference you prefer them to be elected in. You can rank as few as you want, or as many as you want.
Okay. Now we have put the mute on the TV in there. So since we've successfully achieved where we're going to be, before we get to our candidates, we have a couple of questions we think you'll be asking after watching today's show when I can find them. Eddie was meant to prepare the graphics, but I didn't meet the deadline. I'll be honest, I didn't meet the deadline for getting that, so that's the reason why we haven't got the graphics happening today. And I'm just trying to find the sheet that it was on. Oh, God. When you're looking at various different shows, you can find all sorts of different things. Where is it? The questions we think you'll be asking after watching today's show. Now, the question will be, where are all the incumbent candidates standing for re-election? You might notice there are 2 empty seats in the studio. Will Karori have any projects put into the long-term plan? And will Wellington incumbent candidates show the same enthusiasm that the Upper Hutt, Kapiti Coast, Lower Hutt, and Porou incumbents have in appearing on It's in the Ballot? You'd probably say there's some fair questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some very empty seats up there.
I know. And I feel sorry about you being the only female on camera tonight as well. Sorry, I had to say that. I don't mean to, but yes.
It's okay. I'm not offended.
That's all right. You know, got to sit there and go there. Now, Kelvin, you get to be up first on your opening statements. 20 minutes late.
Can you hear me?
Turn up the mixer.
Hello.
Line 5 and 6. Small mixer. Oh, has it got the mute on there?
Hello.
I think we have some sound.
Hello.
Do you want to borrow this?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay. So it's just like an introduction. Yeah. So
just an introduction. Sorry, I turned off my mic just then. Just why
yeah.
you should become the next local councillor for Whangari Onslow Ward.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to do an introduction instead. So my name's Calvin Hasty. How are you going? I started New Zealand's first predator-free community in Crofton Downs here, and scaled that up to 22 communities across Wellington. and brought the partners together for a predator-free Wellington, which was the next foundation, Wellington City Council and Greater Wellington Regional Council. And now I've decided to put my hat in the ring for to be the local councillor. It's a great place that we live. We definitely need more housing, and we definitely need more cycleways. And those are the sort of things that we want to see happening in our community at the moment, and more public transport. Thank you.
And next is Bob Mason. Kia ora, Bob.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. G'day, welcome, my name's Bob Mason. I am running for Onslow Western, endorsed by TOP, the Opportunities Party, because we believe in a fresh approach and an evidence-based approach to the challenges facing this country and particularly this city. I'm a teacher. I teach truculent teenagers at Wellington College, and it was actually one of them who finally inspired me and persuaded me to make a run, saying, "Sir, as you said to us, you have to be the change that you want to see." And even though as you can tell from my accent, I'm a migrant to these shores. I came here 20 years ago. I fell in love with this city. It's beautiful. It's a perfect size. It has diverse and interesting people. But I do feel that it has lost its way, and that is down to a lot of it to the leadership at the top and at the council. And for that reason, I'd like to bring my expertise and my approach and that of the Opportunities Party to hopefully make a difference on council. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Alexander Garside.
Hello, I'm Alexander. Can you hear me? Thank you.
The party line.
Right. Yes, I'm Alexander Garside, and I'm here for housing because, well, basically, so many of our problems in the city stem from a lack of housing. Yep, so many of our problems in the city stem from a lack of housing, and lack of housing where people want to be. I am a motorcycle postie, which means that I know about delivering services in space. And to be honest, we need mode change. We need a whole stack of mode change, and where we start is comfortable, where we'll end is comfortable, but the middle part is difficult, and we need to boldly have a vision for where we want to go as a city.
And next we'll have Ray Chung. Kia ora, Ray.
Hi there. Thanks a lot, Jessica. I'm running for council because I think that the council has actually been running in the wrong direction for many years. They waste huge amounts of money, millions and millions of dollars of expenses that shouldn't be spent. For example, only just 2 weeks ago, the council voted to spend $20 million to give to building developers to make them make their buildings look prettier. So I just don't think that ratepayers' money should be spent on that sort of thing. And I agree that we need a lot of facilities in Wellington. We need the infrastructure fixed, and we certainly don't need burst pipes happening all the time. So it's my intention to actually make these changes if I get into council. Thank you.
And next up, Lachlan Patterson.
Kia ora koutou, ko Lachlan Taku Ingoa, he tangata tira hou, ki te noho o ki kurori, tēnei te mihi ki Ngāti Tōrangatira, te ati awa me Taranaki whānui. Kia ora, my name is Lachlan, I'm the Green candidate for Whangari Onslow Western Ward. I'm all about creating a livable, affordable and sustainable city. I'm a lifelong resident of Wellington, despite its many challenges, the housing and affordability, the pipes bursting beneath our streets. But yeah, successive councils have let us down. They've prioritised entrenched interests ahead of the well-being of our communities, our environment and the future of our city, and we've ended up with a stagnant city that isn't working for anyone. We need change, and I'm all about change. My priorities, getting affordable, quality public housing built throughout our city, creating safe, open streets for neighbourhoods to thrive in, and protecting what's special about the West, which is our natural spaces. I'm also all about taking action that meets the scale of our climate crisis and deepening community democracy to give power to the people. So that's what I'm all about. So please give your vote, number 1, to Lachlan, for a livable, affordable, sustainable city for all.
So one thing I want to ask is, what is the best part you like about Whangari Onslow Western? As I'm now no longer a resident of the area, I'm back in Whakaokawa Southern Ward. So tell me, what's your most favourite attraction within the ward? And who would like to start off first? Okay.
Hello, can you hear me? For me, it's definitely the rapid transit train line that we have. And I'd like to see that extended from Johnsonville back to Tawa to bring the main trunk line back to how it was, to give some resilience to the network. So when it closes for slips every second day in our ward, we'll actually be able to get into town via Tawa on a loop. So for me, if we're going to be looking at housing densification in our suburbs, which obviously we are, and we're all passionate about that, especially in Johnsonville, Johnsonville Town Centre, we want to get those that train running back in the opposite direction. Otherwise, I honestly can't see it working.
Okay, who wants to answer next?
My favourite part of the Whangari Onslow Western Ward is Zealandia. It's so special having that space to really bring the native birds back to our city. I live on Wrights Hill, which backs onto it, and it's so special having the kiriru and the kaka and the tui and our kaka and our kowhai tree. And that's really special, and it's really worth expanding that by planting more natives and doing great pest control across our city.
Okay, go Bob, since you've got your hand up.
Sadly, Lachlan stole my thunder there. I also adore Zealandia, but I'd say all of the lovely green spaces where I don't think there's probably a capital city in the world where you can be so near to town and yet have these gorgeous green spaces, including not just Zealandia, but Otari Wilton Bush, where thanks to that, we have the precious taonga of native birds hopping around on our decks, and it's just a wonderful experience to live and benefit from living in an urban area and have all this beautiful space. So that's definitely my favourite bit of Onslow Western.
Okay, who's prepared to put the hand up next? Okay, Ray.
Hi. I live in Broadmeadows in a house that's backing onto the town build, and that's what I love most, because every morning I go out there, feed the birds, and every evening I go out and give them their dinner. And when I first moved up here, we had possums coming up every night. They were clambering across our roof, and now they've all gone, and all the birds, native birds, are coming back. A lot of my neighbours, I can actually see them going out and feeding the birds at the same time. So I think it's great to be living in a city where you're so close to the natural environment. And also, I have 2 dogs and a cat, and I walk around every day, twice a day, and I talk to all the neighbours. And the people in Broadmeadows are so friendly. They always stop and chat. And I just find that this is a much, much better quality of life than you can get than living in an apartment. Thank you.
Okay, and Alexander.
Unfortunately, I'm detecting a theme, and I'm going to have to contribute to it, because I after COVID, I decided to start a little walking group, and I love the forests. I love the green spaces that we have. I love the pathways and the connections and the views, and just being able to invite people out into, genuine green. It's something that you definitely miss. Say we were just up in Auckland last month, and they'll have a couple of volcanoes here and there, but it's nothing like actual deep forest. Yeah.
I don't know how we would be able to cope with volcanoes, but certainly that would be, a bit of an experience, as long as they're extinct.
Well, we have earthquakes for fun around here.
I know. And the city's back up and running the next day, and people are like, what? And wait, didn't we have a prime minister had an earthquake in the middle of a live interview, and it became a worldwide going viral? Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. Jess will be back here ready to sit there and answer all the questions. Well, not answer, ask. I was going to say,
Please.
yeah,
I wasn't prepared for that, Sam.
No, answer the questions. Yeah. So we'll see you after the break. Okay, welcome back, and we have got Jess who's over at the question box table. Now, want to check before we sit there and proceed, are all the seals attached to the boxes?
They are.
And which unlucky soul here do you think will get one or both of the booby questions?
I hope they're all lucky enough to get a booby question.
We only got two of the boxes. Yeah. Okay. So the rules here with it's in the ballot is the candidates get to choose the box of what it is. Now, all candidates have been given a list of questions in advance because we want them to have intelligent answers, not off the fly, and we want to make sure that they follow within the guidelines of what the local government are. We've also made sure that the questions are within line of their constituency responsibilities as well. No promises of something that they can't deliver, such as building a hospital in the area, because that's a DH. Well, actually, they don't call it DHBs anymore. They call it Health New Zealand. But yes, that's something that's not the responsibility there. And so if a candidate gets a booby question, they get to sit down there, keep that as a get out of jail free card, and then go to the next question. In principle, they're not meant to use the card, but they can use it to get out of a question. But we want to try and make sure they retain it for the end of the show. And Bob, you get to choose the first box.
I will go with lucky 13.
Lucky 13. Question 5. What are you doing to ensure young people's voices are heard and actioned to keep our city vibrant and growing?
Well, I chose luckily there. As a teacher, I've actually been doing an assessment with my 13 politics class. They've been writing submissions to the select committee around lowering the voting age to 16. And my view is this, young people have a right to be heard. The argument that they're too young is a strange one, because views are about the quality of the view, not the person that's making it. And honestly, the caliber of the comments and the submissions they've made in support of lowering the age are better than many of the rather ranty and crap that you see in select committee submissions. So I would just like to expand this. And in the same way that we have a youth parliament, which is only for the handful of lucky 120 kids that get there, I don't see why we can't expand that at a council level and canvass a greater voice and diversity among our young people and hear their views, because they are worth listening to.
Okay. Ray, you're up next. What box number do you fancy?
Right, I'll take number 10, please.
All right, Ray. Number 2. Ray, do you support more housing in the ward? And if so, how would you see this achieved?
Yes, I do support more housing in the ward. I'm not such a great fan on greater intensification of 6 to 10-story buildings in the suburb, but I'd like to see some of the spare land that's actually not being built on at all. For example, I mentioned that I was in Broadmeadows. In Broadmeadows, we have maybe 30 to 35 empty sections that have been empty for many, many years and haven't been built on yet. So I would like to see more intensification going where they just have empty sections and where the land is not being used. I'd also like to see an expansion, around between Johnsonville and Tawa, because I go over there and there's lots of empty land up there, and I think that if people build on these houses, they can actually enjoy the open and the environment, enjoy seeing the birds fly around, rather than being in a big apartment block.
Okay. Next up, Lachlan. What box number do you fancy?
I'll go with 22.
And I better put the graphics across here. I was more focusing on crossing your name off than actually sitting there and putting the graphics on screen.
Question 30. Defer the question to another candidate.
Oh,
That's quick to get a booby question.
yeah,
I
great.
mean, that's what we were joking about. Oh, God. Maybe
So-
Laura happened.
Lachlan, you can save that for if you get a curly one you don't want later
All
on.
right, we'll see about that. All right, okay, I'll choose number 18.
Number 18.
That's a good mix.
Okay. COVID has shown us that we need a bit more space to move around and not catch contagious diseases. At the moment, those in cars have all the space and pedestrians are squashed onto narrow pavements. What will you do, Lachlan, to make more space for those of us who are walking around the city, such as one-way streets, change on-street parking to pavement, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, we all really valued having that open space to walk around, especially with our quiet streets during COVID. It was one of the really special things about it, despite everything else going on. I'm really keen to expand the pedestrianisation, particularly in the city and our neighbourhood centres, especially around Cuba Street, extend that further so we can have a more thriving centre city. And similarly, we can look at expanding that in some of our neighbourhood centres as well. I'm also keen for us to try out low traffic neighborhoods in our in suburbia and across the city. Our streets are quieter, they're safer. You can walk around without worrying too much about cars running through. Your quiet suburban streets, and that'll really make our streets much more open and inviting to people, which would be great for our city and great for the environment and great for our well-being.
Okay. What box number are you wanting, Kelvin?
Oh, how exciting. Number 6, please.
You're very kind to the one in the front row.
So, how much money am I meant to offer you? Or
I get money. What?
no, it's in the bag reference. Are you taking the money or the bag?
Question 23. Do you think the provision and beautification of dog amenities should be paid by ratepayers, or should they be covered by dog owners' registration fees?
Ooh, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I would have to say general ratepayers, because at the end of the day, we all need to contribute to our local amenities and to our parks, whether you be a skateboarder or a BMX rider or a mountain biker. We're all in the same boat. So I would definitely say that we should all, as ratepayers, be paying for that. Thank you. I rest my case.
Alexander, what box number are you wanting?
Oh, could I have number 7, please?
Fingers crossed as the graphic in there, because I've been seeing on the studio chat that it's like it hasn't been loaded back into Restream.
That's question 22. What are your priorities to work on for the next 3 years if you are elected?
Well, in the next 3 years, I think we're going to need to sort of do something about making sure that the costs for everyone are going down. So I'd like to see a trial run of tiny houses, leaseholded onto sort of the empty road reserve that we have. It's just a really decent low cost option. I'd also like to see the introduction of, not so much the introduction of, but the lowering of the limits on commercial activity in residential areas. I think there was in the candidate handbook, there was mentioned that sort of we have one of the highest occupancy rates in residential property. They asserted that this was because we have high confidence in business, but perhaps it's just because we don't have enough space.
And I would like to ask a bit of a supplementary. Could town-bound land be a possibility to put some of these tiny homes on in a leasehold situation, considering at the moment you can't build on it, but there could be little pockets that could be suitable for it?
I would say it would have to be a case-by-case basis. Hopefully not, because among other things, if it's town-bound land, there's chances are that it's not necessarily connected or close to plumbing and utilities and such like that. And that's the thing, it has to be something that can be done relatively quickly and with the consent of the community.
Okay. Kelvin, you're up next. What box number do you want?
Number 19, please.
There we make sure each round has a different order, so we keep everyone away.
Thank you.
This precedent was set by Greg O'Connor back in 2020. He didn't want left to right, right to left in alphabetical order, so we got randomization.
So difficult, Greg.
Hey, it was Richard McIntosh who wanted the questions to be sent.
Okay, this is question 11. Ooh, many people want to cycle around Wellington, but live up or down steep steps and don't have anywhere to store a bike. Do you support the provision of secure, weatherproof bike parking on city streets so that people can keep their bikes in the same way you currently support?
Of course, absolutely. You know, I mean, we want to encourage more cycling, and we need good, secure places for people to keep their cycles, especially electric bikes, which we all know they're not very cheap. So totally support that, and I couldn't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do those sorts of things. You could park your car in the garages on the road reserves at the moment, so why not have bike lockups? I mean, our roads are totally underutilized, and we should be utilizing them a lot more for lots of things. Pop-up cafes. I mean, seriously, we need stuff in our ward.
Okay, Lachlan, what box number do you want to pick?
Oh, I'll go with 14 right there in the middle.
I do like the idea of pop-up cafes on the road as an owner of a coffee cart.
I thought you might
Pop-up
like that,
bars.
Sam. This is question 6. I, the questioner, cycle every day in Wellington. Yes, even in the interesting weather. What are you going to do to support me, the questioner, as I help you, the city, reduce congestion and fight climate change? Please be specific and address safety concerns of cyclists.
Yeah, this is a really important question. I also cycle every day in Wellington in all weather. I biked here tonight. So I'm really keen to make cycling so much safer for everyone in our city. That means I want to deliver the bike network plan on the original schedule. We can't delay it because it's so crucial for getting people out of cars, reducing emissions. I mean, transport emissions are about 58% of our city's emissions. So it's so critical we get people moving on sustainable modes. Yeah, and it might be difficult on some streets. We've got to be flexible and we've got to make it work because the safety of everyone on our streets for all users is so crucial. So I'm really, particularly in the West, we've got some really gnarly intersections and we've got some, especially out in around the corner at Chater Street. It's a bit further than around the corner, but I've been about nearly T-boned there a couple of times. It's pretty not great at all. So we really got to get that sorted on these key arterial routes.
And just for those at home who may want to know some interesting facts, Rutherford Street in Newtown has been recommended to have a separated cycleway because it has 20,000 traffic movements a day, and that is way too unsafe to have cyclists integrating in it. So that might be something worth noting for those who believe cycleways don't need to exist. That's an interesting figure from Waka Kotahi. I'm not sure if it sits at 5 or 10,000, but there is a point in the scale, and I know Rutherford Street in Newtown does meet that, and I could probably say Chater Street possibly does because there's a lot. God, they roar through there. You know, they roar through there. I've been, frequent driver myself of driving through probably every ward of the district in my job. So one of my jobs, so you get that. Now, Bob.
I'll go with number 1.
Now, that's not because you're I know, that's how Tracy Martin sat there and everything came to one of some sort.
Oh, this is 29. It is a dodge the question.
So I get to go again.
So you can choose another one.
Let's go with 2. I'm not.
Well, we can assure you that it's not going to be a BBC because they've all been taken. I do know that the original TV show used to actually have 8 of them. And they would range from a sack of potato spuds and rubber ducks.
This is question 14. What is your immediate actionable plan for upgrading decaying and failing infrastructure such as sewage, water, and stabilisation of hillsides for critical routes and suspending non-critical projects?
Blimey. Yes, not the easiest of questions. My response to this is pretty much the same as the one coming up later to the one on Three Waters in a way, because particularly looking at water infrastructure, it's pretty clear that Wellington has underinvested in this for decades. It's not a recent problem, and it's not an easily quick and fixable problem. And I'm not saying that because I don't have a plan. It's just that the funding of this is extremely difficult. I think we can benefit from the central government funding around Three Waters, and that we need that level of central government support to fix this. The best that we can do in the meantime is simply to identify what is the most critical and focus on that. But many of these problems are just way out of the purview of what we can raise through rates, such as being the level of underinvestment.
Yes, I've got that on. Next up is Ray.
I'll take number 15, thank you, Jessica.
So, Ray, I want to ask you, how does it feel to be back on our Onslow Western one last time?
Yes, it's quite different. Unfortunately, I have to treat all candidates fairly, whereas last time I could actually make jokes with them.
This is question 3. This year, there will be a Māori ward councillor. How do you see Wellington City Council achieving true co-governance with Māori?
I'm actually a bit confused about the co-governance. I don't agree with the Māori ward at all because it's undemocratic. And the reason why I say this is that the 2001 Electoral Act actually states that all wards, city wards, have to be within plus or minus 10% of each other. Now, in Wellington, the average number of constituents per ward is 14,810. The Maori ward has 9,400 people on the roll. So therefore, it's actually about 35% different from the standard wards. So I went down to the council and I suggested that to keep this democratic. Oh, sorry. And the reason why that Maori ward was allowed because Mahuta changed the law to exempt them from the Electoral Act. And I absolutely disagree with this because I don't believe that you can actually change the law to suit any one group. So I went down to the council and I made a submission and I said that to keep this democratic, what you should do is you should make all the wards 9,400. So that way it would retain democracy so that rather than being 14,800, all wards are 9,400. So then they said that, they came back and they said that, of course, that the compensation for council or councillors is the same no matter how many councillors you have. And I said, yes, that's correct. But in fact, that's not actually creating precedent because about 15 years ago.
Start wrapping it up.
Yep, about 15 years ago, we had 23 councillors on council. And so the councillors came back and said, but that means that they'll be paid 35% less. And they're not keen on that at all. So
now that is a damn good point to mention, and I'll be honest with you. Ray and I had a private conversation about this question, and I thought, oh God, Murphy's Law, Ray's the one who actually picks it out of the box. So we've got that point about there. A lot of councillors don't want to take the pay cut by the sounds of it.
Correct.
Okay, Alexander.
Can I have the best number 12?
Okay, this is question 8. Some councillors have actively supported hate speech against cyclists. Do you think this is appropriate, and what will you do to stop it in the future?
That's right. It is inappropriate, and surely it should be a mechanism for we have the code of conduct. Oh yeah. So we have a code of conduct, and I think it's time if we have this sort of thing happening in the subsequent council that we have that we need to make sure that sort of such speech is not just sort of brushed under the table and normalized. And that's the responsibility of everyone who's going to get in to basically make sure that that we have a clear position on this.
Okay, Ray, you're up next.
Well, I thought I'd just been.
We're on the next round.
Okay, we'll take legs 11. Thank you, Jessica.
Oh no, isn't it Six ladies dressed in green as well? Isn't that another one that comes out?
I'm not sure we should go there for some of those bingo calls, to be honest.
No, that's true.
Now is coming out who plays bingo.
Okay, this is question 10. Internationally, cities that are nicer places to walk around are considered better places to live. What will you do to improve the experience of pedestrians in Wellington, such as wider footpaths, less on-street parking, more green spaces, protection from the wind and rain?
I absolutely agree with the first comment about cities that are nicer places to walk. Cities that have places to walk are much nicer. I used to work for this German company, Hansa-Luftbild, and I was based in Munster in northern Germany. Now that's about the same size as Wellington and a really, really beautiful city to actually walk around in. What they do is they have lots of smaller shopping or smaller malls where cars are prohibited. But I actually made a submission to council on this as well, that it's fine to have these malls, but what you need some place for cars to actually take people to these areas and for them to park. Now, if you take away the car parks and throughout the whole city, then where do these people park when they actually go to these places to walk around? But in Germany, the solution is actually to have parking buildings really near, well, not too nearby, maybe a couple of blocks away, so that people can park their cars there and safely walk down to these areas, enjoy the evenings, go to the movies, for a dinner, go to the theatre, and then walk back to where their cars are parked.
And got to admit, parking buildings are a little bit easier to deal with because then they're not actually holding up 10 or 20,000 cars on Ridderford Street when they're backing in reverse parallel parking. So I like the concept about parking buildings.
Absolutely.
It is a slightly different solution. And also it puts the responsibility onus on the private company, not on the public company.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, Lachlan.
Oh, brilliant. I'll go with number 16.
I'll be pretty disturbed if that did end up happening, though.
Okay, this is question 12. The council is committed to normalising te reo Māori and pōneke. What will you do to ensure this happens?
Yeah, so that's a really one small part of decolonizing our city. And one thing we can do is we can restore place names to their original place names, and we can also correct incorrect spellings. You know, Karori used to be Kahorori. Tenakori is a transliteration of smushed together, and Epuni Street is named after Te Puni. So we've got all these names that are either not the original Te Reo Māori name, or are really bastardizations of what they're supposed to be. So that's one thing we can do to really normalize Te Reo, have all our place names correct with the original Te Reo Māori place name.
I'd love to see Mount Kaukau/Koko back to Tarakaka.
That's right, that's right.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, Bob, you're up next.
I'll go with 26. Let's get a high number.
What do we think's going to be in there?
Question 16. Wellington City Council will get extra rates revenue from increased housing density. What actual steps will you take to improve services to these corridor suburbs, including community services and utilities?
Well, this is actually the positive in encouraging more housing. For those that grumble about housing, that the point about it is that it does increase the rates that we can spend on these amenities. I would actually take a step back here and go down a more bold approach and say that one thing that we should do with new housing developments is incorporating the cost of them. The developers would actually pay a premium over this so that it will help fund some of the amenities that go in that area where it's going to be. And that will probably address many of the concerns that some residents have about, well, all these people coming in here, what about our amenities? Well, I would say, well, there's an excellent opportunity in the development stage of this to fund those amenities ahead of this, and then it will benefit not only the new inhabitants of that area, but all the existing ones as well.
Now, would that be done for a straight up cash payment, or would it be done through a targeted rate over, say, a period of 10 years?
I would probably say I would do a targeted rate over 10 years, I would think.
Because I think the straight up cash payment would bulk up the initial price.
Yeah, and it's more disruptive economically in the short term to do that. If you build it over time, it would be better, because of course those amenities will take time to develop as well. So yeah, but these are solutions that are being used all over the world to great effect.
Okay, Kelvin.
Number 8, please.
So that's the one that's got the on the screen. I don't know why it does that, and I was meant to fix it tonight, but well, we know what happened.
I'm sure somehow it connects to a conspiracy to silence certain candidates.
While repeating the word Rua.
That's question 21. Are you a current member of any political party, and has your campaign received any support from a political party, including access to voter databases and volunteers?
That's a really good question. Can you hear me? Just making sure. I am not currently a member of any political party. I don't think any of them would have me. Has your campaign received any support from a political party? Absolutely. My campaign bank account is currently $0 and 0 cents. And including access to voter databases and volunteers, absolutely no one wants to work with me, so I have no volunteers. Thank you.
Refreshingly frank.
Good on you, mate.
Okay, Alexander. I don't know why you keep being ended up at the bottom of these lists.
27, please.
Well, actually, that's true. And actually, on that particular round, it was Barbara at the bottom of the list.
See, it was a conspiracy. Question 17. Saving the planet and saving the car can't happen together, according to the questioner. What are you going to do in the term to actively reduce the number of private cars driving around Wellington and being parked on our streets?
Well, there are some pretty good strategies already in place in the central city, but out in the suburbs, it's kind of a free-for-all, isn't it? I think that we can reduce the number of cars and actually improve life for people who own cars. Say, for example, you've got in Wadestown, everyone's parking everywhere. There isn't a residential parking zone. And honestly, if there was, that would put a cap on the number of cars there, but the people who live there would be able to park more easily. And so that would be a way of, that's just one way. Ultimately, we do need to, improve the services that we have, especially public transport, but cycling and walkability is, my goodness, especially in this ward. But yeah, no, even measures to control cars can end up benefiting the people who drive them as well. So it can be a win-win.
Okay, Kelvin, you're on you're top of the list on the next round.
Okay, I'm going to go a bit higher this time. I'm just feeling lucky tonight. So I'm going to go for number 23.
So how are you finding the questions?
Bloody awesome, mate. I love these questions. They're awesome.
Question 28. Do you agree that if there is a move to introduce volumetric charges for water for residents, it should only be introduced with the consent of the majority of voters?
Unfortunately for Wellington City, whether we like it or not, water charges are going to be arriving at some stage. We don't know when, we don't know how, and we don't know why, because Three Waters is on the table at the moment. But certainly if Three Waters does get across the line, and that will come down to the 2023 central government election, National saying they're going to ditch it, Labor's saying they're going to keep it. So that decision will be made then. So for water authorities all around the country at the moment, they're on hold because they don't want to be spending any money at this moment until that decision has been made. But certainly any reduction in rates from losing our water assets will come back to bite us in the form of water metering. So don't think having a reduction in your water rates and your rates bill means that it's going to be forever. It's going to be for a temporary time. But I mean, everyone agrees that we've got to do something about water infrastructure. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute mess. I didn't swear that time. So something has to be done and aggressively needs to be done. It's just we don't know what that's going to be at this stage. And certainly I'm not in council. I'm just a community member, and I've gone over my 1 minute.
Yeah, I think you have. That's all right. Lachlan, what's your next number?
I'll go with number 20.
This is question 4. I, the questioner, believe we need housing for everyone more than we need drafty heritage buildings. How will you support more housing against the naysayers in Wellington?
Yeah, so we badly need more housing. We need good housing. We need affordable housing. You know, Wellington has some of the most expensive housing in the country, but also the moldiest. So we're getting the very worst deal. I don't support keeping all these houses that are old, protecting them just because they're old when they're using up valuable land where we could be fitting more housing, particularly in our inner suburbs, which are the most walkable and connected part of the city. So we need to be building more homes. We need to be building more public housing and the public good, not for people, not for profit. yeah, we need to be building quality housing, sunny housing, warm housing, because we don't have enough of it in our city and we're paying the price for it. So I'm very supportive of building more homes, building more public housing, and not protecting these old houses just because they're old, which is driving gentrification, driving displacement, and just to protect property values. So we need change.
What about old people, Lockwood?
The old people, what do you mean? What about old people? They can live in their homes.
So it's just houses, not people.
Well, I was also going to sit there and say would you be open for those older character houses being put on the back of house transporters and relocated to new homes that are slightly a bit out of the CBD of the city?
Yeah, if people want to protect their homes, they're welcome to do whatever they want with them. They can put them on a truck, put them in a beautiful suburban area, but put them where it's where the land isn't quite so valuable and quite so connected. That'd be great. People can do what they like with their homes. If they want to sell them and to redevelop into something better housing, better quality housing, more housing, then they should be able to.
Okay, next up, Ray.
Right. Let me see. 28, right next to you.
Okay, this is question number 26. Do you think climate change should be the number one concern at the ballot box?
No, I don't think it should be the number one concern. I think that the number one concern should be fixing the infrastructure. And that's the main
Same
thing
thing.
that should be done. Everything else comes secondary.
Well, I could say fixing the infrastructure may sit there and solve some of the issues of flooded streets. So
Well, that's true. That's true.
yeah, so it does partly help with climate change in a way. Bob, you're up next.
I'll go with number 9, please.
Okay, this is question 25. How respectful is the relationship between central and local government?
It's not. I've got a minute though,
But
so
if you and I both get in, it'll be all right,
it
right?
will be a lot better. It's in a poor state because it's too easy for both of these sides to pass the buck, to say, well, this is a local problem, and locals say, well, we haven't got the money, it's a central problem. And all the water stuff is a brilliant illustration of this, where successive councils, including this one, have not spent enough on developing things in terms of water infrastructure to keep rates down, and just expected things to be done centrally. So I would like to foster a better relationship with central government as a local councillor, because having this kind of stoush where it just gets pushed back and forth is just not conducive to good governance at the local level.
Okay, Alexander.
All right, 17, please.
Question 9. We need land for housing. How will you support freeing up land in the right places and without letting rich NIMBYs stop you?
That's including people like Mr. Burns.
Well, I think the way that we need to organize housing is not just along public transit lines, and it's not just sort of near city centers, but as well, I think the real focus needs to be, where's the water infrastructure? Because really that's the limiting factor. I'd love to chuck up a couple of towers in Karori, but then we just overload the Western wastewater plant. And I think the national policy statement on urban development has done a lot for us, the medium density housing developments, and I'd like to see us as a council go further, and that doesn't necessarily mean losing the leafy character of our suburbs. You look at say Newman Street down in Thorndon, you have towers there right next to forest, and they're complementary. They're not fighting each other.
And I can say one of them definitely has a nice loading zone when it comes to delivering fruits and vegetables, as me, who's one who frequently does deliveries for one of my jobs. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break now, and we'll be back for hard-hitting questions.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go. We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go.
and welcome back. We are joined now for hard-hitting questions. So with hard-hitting questions, these are the questions that are asked to all candidates across the board so we can get a range of their opinions. Would you like to ask hard-hitting question number 1?
Absolutely. So the first question is, what is your position on the Three Waters reform and why have you come to that position?
And we'll start off with Ray.
Well, already. Okay. My position is I'm against the Three Waters, and because we don't know enough information about it, we've asked the Minister Mahuta for further information, and she was not forthcoming. So we put an official information request to her asking for more information. And the sorts of answers we've been getting is that first one was, how is this going to be staffed? And she said that 9,000 more people will be employed to work on the Three Waters. So that'll make it very efficient because you'll have the capacity there. So then she also said that ratepayers will pay 45 to 50% less for their water than they're currently paying. So we asked her, how do these two things match up then? Because employing 9,000 more people is going to cost over $1 billion. So where are you going to make the savings? So then she came back and said, through quantity of scale. I thought, well, okay, that's really interesting. So can you explain to us where you get the savings through quantity of scale? Because all the reservoirs in New Zealand are in different places. So how can you actually make the saving from there? So then we got an answer back saying that we're not going to answer any more of your questions. Thank you very much. So I feel that we're not getting the answers, and we don't get the answers. When the public don't get the answers, there's something shonky going on.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Lachlan's next.
Cool. Yeah, I'm supportive of the Three Waters reform. We've seen in Wellington just how neglected and underinvested our pipes have suffered. Up to 31% of our treated and supplied water is lost in our pipes, and 1/3 of our pipes are in poor or very poor state, and it's only 10% in Auckland. So three times more of our pipes are in terrible state. We know that it's super expensive. We've got the duplication of services across the city, across the country. We've got different bureaucracies across the city. So if we can streamline that, that would be great. And we know it's only going to get more expensive to catch up on all of the decades and decades of neglect. I think there is some missed opportunities. There should be more community accountability and more accountability in mana whenua, particularly when we're dealing with water. So that's where Three Waters falls short. But I'm hopeful that there's still opportunity to improve our community accountability and improve mana whenua, accountability to mana whenua as well as we go through.
Sounds like you're going to be definitely putting in a submission on it. Now, next up, Bob.
I'm also supportive of reform and central government funding. I have some doubts about aspects of Three Waters, but I think that that's already taking part in a big fractious debate at the national level, and that's something that will be ironed out in due course. I think at a local level, as I've said before, we will absolutely benefit in Wellington from having this funding here. I understand that Auckland and Christchurch are miffed because they've spent a lot of money on their water systems, but frankly, I'm not running in Auckland, I'm not running in Christchurch, I'm running here, and we need this to happen. And spare a thought for small, sparsely populated, large, sparsely populated rural communities. They simply cannot afford to maintain their water. Essentially, it should be done centrally and socialized in that way. Most other countries do it that way, rather than devolving everything down to this level. And I would criticize those incumbents, such as the mayor, who've gone on and on about retaining control of our assets. Currently, they're not assets, they're liabilities due to the lack of investment. So I'm absolutely supportive of reform and central government funding. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Kelvin next.
Well, this is the second time I've actually had this question, so I'm pretty lucky. At the end of the day, if I put myself in the position of being a Wellington City Councillor, we need to think strategically about the way this is going to go, because we don't know which way it's going to go. So we need to plan for both. We need to plan for three waters, and we need to plan for potentially not three waters. And anyone that says that's going into council with the view of three waters only is not representing Wellingtonians, because we need a strategic view on both. We need to plan for both, because there is complete uncertainty until next year's central government elections. Thank you.
Okay, Alexander.
Well, I am supportive of the reforms. I think that we're not in a crisis position yet, but we're heading that direction, and we've got to make some hard decisions whether or not three waters happens. Like, do we do water metering? And if so, do we have smart water metering so that we figure out where the leaks are and actually have a specific plan to address them? We have to have. I mean, water is a regional issue. We're all drinking from the aquifer from the Kaitoku catchment. Do we put a dam in the Akaterawis? What does that say about significant natural areas? And if we do, how are we going to make the most of that? But the specific reason why I think three waters is probably a good idea is because I got a little ad from the taxpayers union opposing it. So that pretty much sums it up.
Okay, so now let's get to hard-hitting question number 2. Currently, there is no plans to replace the Karori Tunnel. There needs to be at least 4.3 metres minimum height clearance to allow for double deckers. What will you do to advocate during your term to ensure that there is a replacement for the current Karori Tunnel put into the long-term plan? Let's start off with Bob.
This question really amused me because it kind of pointed out, I think, all the problems in local government in Wellington. Why anyone would actually put forward a credible proposal to spend what would be an astronomical amount on increasing the height of that tunnel, taking into account earthquake strengthening, the process and the resources and everything, when surely there are more creative evidence-based solutions, such as if the problem is only single-decker buses coming through, and I know this is a problem because all the boys at my school who live in Karori are always late because, sir, the bus came but it was full, the next bus was full, we just run more buses. Or we have bendy buses with 2 single-decker next to each other. Surely the overall cost of running that is less than the astronomical cost of trying to rebuild that tunnel.
Thanks, Bob. And now Ray.
Right. I'm against. Is that working? I'm against increasing the height of the tunnel for double-decker buses. I think that double-decker buses are what's causing the potholes in Wellington because of the sheer axle weight on those buses. The batteries and the axle weight on those buses is actually damaging the roads everywhere. And so unless we actually allow for repairing these roads and bringing them up to a higher standard, I'm against having more double-decker buses. I would say that to solve Karori's problem, I would have more single-decker buses and leave the tunnel as it is.
Okay. Alexander.
Well, I'd say if we're talking about the Karori Tunnel, really the probably more of an issue than the height is the width. I mean, they'd be addressed at the same time, but for pedestrians, it's quite frankly embarrassing. But in the short term, I'd say that what we can do is we can minimize the need for that tunnel. If we can get more business within Karori, and as well, if we can figure out sort of the Chater Street intersection and potentially get a connecting bus route in between Crofton Downs and sort of the Johnsonville line and Karori, because at the moment this is a gap, a severe gap in public transport, and I think we need to, if we can work with the regional council on sort of intensifying that area and making that connection and actually making sure that people don't need to go through that tunnel to achieve, to go to school, to go to work. then quite possibly we won't need to have that expenditure, at least in the short term.
So would that also include zoning, say, land in Karori for a secondary school?
Yes, yes, and I've asked the question of who is it? The property company. You know that space on Curtis Street, that empty space that's not currently
Prime Property, I think, owns
Prime
it.
Property. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to hear their thoughts on perhaps whether we could put a secondary school there, because at the moment, it's clogging up all of town, and if everywhere else is trying to densify, what does that mean for the schools that are already down there?
Okay, Kelvin.
For me, long-term plans are everything that's wrong about local government. We need a 100-year vision for Wellington, not a long-term plan. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a 100-year growth plan, not only for Wellington, but for the whole region. Looking 10, 5, 20 years out, it's just not looking far enough. And that's what the whole reason we're in this mess we're in right now. I swore again, but, because we're not thinking far enough into the future. So putting in cycleways, pop-up cycleways, digging them back up again. We need resilient corridors for cycleways, for pedestrians, for buses, rapid transit, whatever it is. We need a 100-year plan, and we need it now. If we look at regional rail, we need $7.3 billion for regional rail to stand still. That's without my proposed Johnsonville to Tawa connection. So look, if we don't think long term, this city, I'm sorry, city, but it's all over.
Okay, Lachlan.
I'm really supportive of investigating this. I mean, the Karori Residents Association has done an excellent and very fulsome report outlining the benefits of different options. But we need the evidence. We need to see if it's worthwhile. It would be great to have double-decker buses. I don't think they're what's causing a huge number of potholes. We had some of the worst potholes in the city on the main street of Karori, and there's definitely no double-decker buses there because of this tunnel. We're spending $2.2 billion on a couple new tunnels out around Mount Vic, and they're going to save 1.5 minutes for cars. I think we possibly could get better value if we're allowing the number 2 bus as a double-decker bus through the Karori Tunnel, because remember, that goes all the way out to Miramar and Situn. So that whole route is forced to have single-decker buses because of this one tunnel. It's also terrible for walking. It's terrible for biking. If you're pedestrian and you've got two-way traffic, you have to squeeze to the side to let the other person past. It's leaky, it's damp, it's dark.
You don't want to meet a wheelchair in there?
You don't want to meet a wheelchair in there or a stroller. It's just it's a real pinch point for all kinds of vehicles. You got to have a big logging truck coming through out to Makara. You got to stop traffic on both sides of that tunnel. I think there's real potential for seeing how we can expand that, improve it for pedestrians, improve it for cyclists, and get double deckers through to get our whole public transport buses all the way through the city really much more efficient. So I think it's really worth looking into, and I'm really keen on council to look into it.
Okay, thanks everybody. Question 3. Recently, the Kandala pool has been put into the long-term plan. What would you do to ensure it remains in the long-term plan and is not removed by councillors who are not representing this constituency? And we'll start with Alexander.
Well, again, to justify a service, a resource, a community asset like that, it's about having more people in the catchment to use it. And that means densifying not just the central city, but indeed places like Kandala. And also making sure that that more people from throughout that region can actually access the Kandala pool. Ultimately, if there's enough people, enough ratepayers within the area to fund it, then we can get things like heating. Lovely.
Heated swimming pools.
Heated swimming pools, I know.
Or wetsuits for all.
Well, basically, it needs it. But that's the thing. Like, it would be fantastic to live next to this pool, but we're just going to make sure that what we have is affordable and that we have the people to pay for it.
Okay, next up, Ray.
Right. I have mixed views on this because my platform is for financial prudence. And so I'm looking at not wasting money on things. That's refurbishing that Canala pool is going to cost $8.5 million. And I'm not sure that they'll get the increased number of people going there once that $8.5 million has been spent. So I would like to actually see how many of those people actually go to the Johnsonville pool. Because I've been to the Johnsonville pool and it's, from my opinion, it's a much, much nicer pool and you can use it in all weather. Whereas even if they heat the Kandala pool, I'm not sure that you still prefer to use that over the Johnsonville pool.
Okay.
And now Lachlan.
Yeah, so I think the way to stop other councillors gutting the Kandala pool is to actually have good constructive working on council, have that consensus building, have good relationships, and have councillors acting in the best interest of the whole city. I mean, the Kandala pool upgrade is very valuable. I think it's why most, if not all, of the councillors did support it. So I don't know if it's under threat yet. And it would be great to have that pool heated. It's really buzzes in the summer, and it'd be great to have that available for the community in other weather as well and other climates. So it is really exciting, but it does come down to having a council that is committed to the interests of the whole city, having a great pool network. But of course, we've got to get more lifeguards first, so that'll be quite useful. So we've got to pay lifeguards more as well.
Well, we can get some high school students for after school. Okay, Kelvin.
For me, it's a community asset. It has to stay. The cost to remove, I mean, this is quite clearly, take the cost to close that pool down and remove it and then put it back. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be more than $8.5 million. So it's a great community asset. We all love it. I love the fact it's cold, but that's just me, being from the South Island. So yeah, look, I think everyone in our community loves that pool and just wants to keep it there. That's about it, really.
Thanks, Kelvin. And Bob.
I'm prepared to be quite bold and ambitious about this. I think that there's been lots of talk about getting sort of Japanese onsen style complexes in New Zealand, tapping into geothermal energy, but there's no reason why we couldn't look at something even more flash there if we could get interest from the private sector in developing on that to turn it into an actual complex around there. If we couldn't, though, it absolutely should stay as a community asset. And I think I agree with Lachlan that this question really is about relationships in the council rather than that particular asset. And it's come about because the current council is incredibly fractious and entrenched and somewhat selfish. Not all the councillors, but a lot of them. And the idea is that I'm only going to vote for things that matter in my ward. That is a terrible view. And what I would do on council is try and reach out so that we can build those relationships and say, well, look, these are important in my ward, that's important in yours. Can we come to some constructive arrangement so that they are all preserved and funded?
Okay, thank you for all those hard-hitting question answers. I'm hoping they made it. You're a Onslow Western voter. Has this helped make your decision on who to vote for?
Oh, it's been very interesting. Very impressed with all the nerdery, frankly, on the panel, and yeah, very, very interesting to see where my second, third, fourth, and fifth goes, because I feel like my first there might be a little bit of a.
And
giveaway
Ray,
there.
on the control desk, you're also a Whangangi Onslow Western voter. How do you feel it's been tonight on the debate? Yeah, run the mic across. Yeah.
I appreciate everyone's togetherness. You were enthusiastic in your answers, and it shows a lot of thought and care that goes into this.
Okay, you definitely don't get much time where you get the person on the control desk speaking through to the rest of the world. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for closing statements. better if I turn on the mics. I now have control of that as well as Ray. So we're going to be back for closing statements. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to give their closing statements on why they should get your number one vote for the Whangari Onslow Western Ward. Let's start off with Alexander.
Well, as you've heard, there are many good candidates, and I hope that whoever gets in does a good job. I think we need to, well, yeah, I think we just need to be conscious as a city that we are facing some temporary problems, and we have boundless opportunities if we have more people, and we're not going to run out. This century, we're going to see goodness knows how many climate refugees who are going to need a home. And that could be not just Wellington, but the Wellington region. That could be New Zealand as a whole. We talk about food miles. Well, why not just bring people here instead? And yeah, I'm here to make that happen at a local level. But I think, you know, during this election and during the general election that's coming up, you know, we have to think about what we actually want from the future. You look at pictures of old Wellington, you know, it's denuded of forest, old goat tracks. You look at what it is now. What can it be?
Yeah.
Thank you, Alexander. Kelvin is next.
Oh, me. Goodness gracious. Look, we live in a beautiful, beautiful place. We're surrounded by nature. We're surrounded by rivers. The people that live here are just amazing people. I've made so many friends with my work with Predator Free. Predator Free Crofton Downs and the surrounding districts became the template for a Predator Free New Zealand. It's all fantastic stuff. However, we need some housing and we need to get some people into our communities. So we've got the new district plan, whether we like it or not, densification is in the district plan. Currently, it's not going to work. So we're going to have to get people into Johnsonville, those centres. We're going to have to get them moving north between Porirua and back to the Wellington CBD. So the government is going to have to pay for an extension of the Johnsonville line to Tawa, because otherwise we don't have resilient transport corridor. We can't all ride a bike, unfortunately. It's quite hilly down that road. So we'll be desperately talking to central government about getting that rail link back in place. It was there previously. There's no reason why it can't be back again. And then, of course, Karori, we've got to get Karori sorted out. We need a 100-year vision of how Wellington's going to be. We've currently got a district plan we do not have the infrastructure to support it. It's as pure and simple as that. We can't even get our roads right. How are we going to put another 10 or 20,000 people in the western suburbs? So let's make it happen. Let's move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Lachlan.
Cool. Thank you so much for the debate tonight. As you said, I'm Lachlan. I'm the Green candidate for Whangari Onslow Western Ward, so I would really appreciate your number one vote. As I said at the start, I'm all about creating a livable, affordable, and sustainable city for all who call Wellington home. There's absolutely no reason why we can't have affordable, quality, warm, accessible housing for everyone. Public housing, social housing to take the money, the profit out of the equation and focus on housing people. There's no reason why we can't have thriving and bustling neighborhoods with great shopping experiences, awesome cafe culture, all that good stuff right in the hearts of our neighborhoods. There's no reason why we can't have native birds flourishing right throughout our city, coming all the way into every neighborhood, because we've got great green space and we've managed predators and got rid of them in our city. It just is a matter of electing people with vision, with drive, and who are ready to take this council term by the horns and start building consensus for change, for good things. Because we know we need change. We've seen this term. We've got the climate crisis, the housing crisis, the biodiversity crisis. We're at a crossroads, and we need to take action because any later it'll be too late. I'm all about building affordable and social housing, good housing. I'm all about safe streets, great transport links, giving people a greater say in their neighborhood and what we spend money on. So if that's something for, if you want to create that livable, sustainable city with someone building consensus at the council table to get things done, please give me your number 1 vote, Lachlan Patterson, Green candidate for Whangari Onslow Western.
Thanks, Lachlan. And now Ray.
Thank you. As I mentioned, my 2 platforms are, first of all, to focus on the infrastructure, to make sure the infrastructure is done before anything else. And the second one is to keep the council in line and councillors in line on the spending and the amount of money that they're actually wasting. I believe that if you look at what the council has actually spent in the last 3 years, they've increased from 2.3 billion to 3.2 billion. Now that's a 50% increase in capital costs. So I believe that we should try and tie back some of those things that aren't essentials. Let's get the problems fixed first, and then we can have the nice to haves later. So if you want that done, if you want to keep your rates down, then please give me a number 1 vote for Onslow Western. Regarding the housing, I don't actually believe that we have a shortage of housing. I believe that we have a shortage of affordable housing. Now that's 2 different things. If you talk to any real estate agent, they'll tell you that there's about 1,000 to 1,100 houses for sale in Wellington at the moment. But the problem is that they're too expensive. People can't afford them. So the only way to build affordable housing is actually to build them out of timber and to build them in as single-story houses and build them in the suburbs, because it's the cheapest possible way to build them, and it doesn't have that carbon usage on using lots of concrete and steel. Thank you.
Okay, and last, Bob.
Today I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's been a great debate. It's been really interesting to be here. It's very telling to me that there are 2 empty seats here for the 2 incumbents on council. And if you look at that, there was a survey recently in which the approval of the Wellington City Council was down to 12%. A decade ago, it was up to about 85–90%. That gives the scale to me of the problem at the moment, because I love Wellington. It's an amazing city, amazing place to raise a family, amazing people and amazing potential. But it's really been let down by the governance of the council. And I just think that what I bring as a teacher is the ability to be relational and to build relationships. I was actually door knocking the other day and spoke to a gentleman, and he said, "Oh, you're a teacher, great, you can knock them into shape with that discipline." But that's actually not what we do in teaching anymore. That's a little old school. It's about understanding that there are lots of diverse views and ideas and needs within any school, within any city, within any country, and that you have to build a relationship across the political fence. You have to understand the point of view of other people as well. And that's the skill that I can bring as a candidate and as a councillor. So I'd like you to vote for me. Number 1, Bob Mason, standing for TOP, the Opportunities Party, because we're the only party as well that has evidence-based, fresh thinking, different from the established parties, to deal with the pressing problems in this city, which is housing, infrastructure, and these are not temporary problems, they're urgent problems, and they have to be addressed quickly. Thank you.
Okay, so it's that time of the night again where we are going to be saying goodbye. Thank you, Jess, for being my proud co-host for the night and being a bit more active than, shall we say, so other ones. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sam. So have I. And thank you so much to the wonderful crew here. Despite all the difficulties, they've soldiered on very bravely.
I had to restart the computer. I mean, that's a great start to the show. Now, tomorrow, because we always boast about what's coming up next. Tomorrow, we've got Kapiti Coast District at Large Ward at the Waikanai Community Centre if you want to drive up there. Or you can tune in at 7 p.m. and watch it from home, especially if you're in Wellington. It might be more carbon friendly to use the internet and watch it at home. On Tuesday, we've got the Waikanai Ward and also in the Waikanai Community Centre for you viewers. I believe they're going to be very well watched. The Kapiti Coast people love It's in the Ballot. On Wednesday, we've got the big one, the Lower Hutt Mayoral Race. Will it be Campbell Barry or Tony Stellinger? We'll see what happens there. And fingers crossed, we'll see both of them on the night. And then we'll head over to the lovely hill that you've got to drive up in third gear and probably with all the gear behind it. Wainuiamata Ward at Bilderbeck Hall. You can sit there and see us on Thursday. And then on Friday, if you want to find out who's on the regional council standing in Pororotawa constituency, we'll be at the Titahi Bay Bowling Club. So you can sit there and do that. Hey, and if you're a member, you can go and get yourself a drink while you're at it. Can I please thank Ray, Bob, Calvin, Lachlan, and Alexander for coming tonight? Thank you for being there. I'm glad to see 5 new fresh faces prepared to come to tonight's show.
I'm not that fresh, mate.
Yeah, yes, but in the political sense you are. I really am glad to see that you have done it. I do hope we have a little bit more enthusiasm from other incumbent councillors on Wellington City Council, because, as I say, if Wayne Guppy from Upper Hutt can sit there and come along and embrace it and keep the dodge the question card for the council chambers, I'm sure every other Wellington City Council incumbent councillor and candidates who are newcomers also can sit there and do that. Andre, Stacey, Ray, Paul, who's coming from remotely, and Eddie, who's done the graphics, even that we've had a bit of a tumbling start. Thank you for making this show happen. And thank you, Stacey, for all the hard work today that you did trying to get multiple shows going. It's a lot of work to do. Effectively, Stacey at the moment is acting as a full-time job doing It's in the Ballot, and I'm so proud, and thank you so much because you're taking so much stress off me. You know, I don't know how else it can be done without it. And I have to say, I feel a hell of a lot more comfortable than I did in 2020 doing. I felt like everything. So, you know, it definitely does feel a bit better. And to the audience, thank you for joining tonight. You know, you put up with our technical hiccups and we're patient. Apologies if I might have got myself into what would be code of conduct issue if I was on the council, because you guess what happens when things do go wrong, especially when it makes no sense, like it did in the situation. But rebooting the computer solved the problem. And to the audience at home, thank you for bearing with us. I do know that was a little bit difficult dealing with it because that went on for a lot longer than we wanted, because it was literally fault finding. It felt weird having to me vacate the host seat to head to the computer, but this is what happens when something doesn't make sense. All hands on deck are trying to sit there and do it. And I remember Ray, Andre, and myself all going like, it's not the mixer. Is it the software? Oh, which software? You know, the whole lot. But we've managed to make it work. And I, you know, very thankful of it. So see you all tomorrow at 7 p.m. at the Waikanai Community Centre or online. And thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Ka kite.